Backed up in it. It's about time, huh? Well, good afternoon and good evening, everyone.
Just a second, Rev.
Sorry about that. I set up the room. Sorry, I missed the step.
Testing. Okay.
All set?
Just a second.
The monitors are coming on, so Dr. McCafferty will be on the screen.
Oh, okay, all right.
There we go. There she is.
We see you now.
Hello. How you doing?
Doing great. How's everyone?
Wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Is that better? Can you see her better?
We can see you. Oh, something happened.
Sorry.
Yes, there you go.
All right, Rev, I think we're ready.
Hello, so it's now 6:30, I believe, 6:31, 6:32. Time to begin our meeting. We call all of our having a moment of silence, please, at this time. Amen. Thank you. So at this time, we have a secretary. She will do the announcements.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Edwards. One of the first announcements is that the commission now has an email address, and I will make sure I share the email address with all of us. It's laahc@ci.lewes.de@us. So we have an official email address for business.
So any email that goes to that will go to all of you.
Oh, okay. Also, the commission's mission, vision, and goals are now linked to the city website, and we will have our bylaws linked soon as well. The Board of Adjustment hearing will be on November 2nd, 2021 at 10 a.m. on the Menhaden Fishnet Reel at the Margaret Collins Building. Luncheon on Saturday, October 23rd at Sydney's for those who are volunteers with them, and it is RSVP, so if you haven't done it by now, then you're too late. We also had a dedication of a state historic marker at the George H.P. Smith Park. For the marker is Blockhouse Pond, and it also makes reference to Mayor Smith. And so that was this past Wednesday. And I think that's it. Unless anybody else has any other announcements.
Can I just add, regarding the Board of Adjustment hearing, because of COVID, obviously, there is limited seating capacity in the meeting room. In addition to the board, the two parties, and the staff that will be there to support, there's room for, I think, 22 seats is what we have. So it will be streamed on YouTube, and it will be available by Zoom.
That it?
That's all I have.
We've heard reading of minutes. Is there a motion?
I so move that we approve the minutes as written.
A second.
A motion and second that we approve the minutes that have been read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have them, so it's carried. I have two papers in before me, but I think that,
We're on D, item D. Update on marker.
Reverend
I
McCaffrey,
think what it is, I have this paper here. I didn't run it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But that was the update on the marker that we have someone that,
yeah, I didn't know if I was to do it or Reverend McCaffrey.
You both
but,
can,
Yeah, we did have our meeting, and I just want to say, we've had so much help on this with the Lewes Historical Society has been right there with us. Marcos and Denise, who's at the the museum there, she's the archivist, and then Andrew, and also the state archivist who was at the markers. He has been at our last two meetings. And let me tell you, it's very complicated doing a marker because there are so many Peter Lewises at so many different times in our history, and to be able to verify what we are going to put on our marker has been very complex. Reverend McCafferty knows this because she's done it before, but for me, I just have been amazed. So we did have to reword our application, our original, because there were things in that they felt were questionable. So we rewrote what we thought, and the final rewriting, Denise from the Lewes Historical Society and Reverend McCafferty approved it, and so we're putting it before you. And some people I know are a little disappointed that there isn't more facts, but we don't really have a lot of the background documents to actually substantiate what we have. So we're going to put this forward, and actually the state archivists can actually make it stronger. I mean, they can do a lot of work on it as well, but that's kind of where we are. And Reverend McCafferty, what have I left out? Oops.
You did good. Yeah, you covered it all. After we received the approval from the commission, we will send the application in. And also, I gave them a letter giving them permission to place the marker on St. George's property, which is the cemetery.
wonderful.
Thank you.
But I'd like to publicly thank Miss Rachel. She worked diligently and hard, and you get all these tons of research, but you have to boil it down to 600 characters, including spaces and periods. So the hard part is
days of the public notice of, what you're voting on, so the public can attend, and I wasn't within that, our subcommittee wasn't within that 10 days, so.
And I think one of the issues is because when the agenda was created, when we have to have an action,
Right.
we have to say discussion in action. And I had on the agenda just discussion.
Yeah.
So going forward, this is a lesson learned. Going forward, when I talked to Ms. Anne Marie about it, anytime we have something, whether we know we have an action or not, if I put on the agenda discussion in action, you don't have to have an action, but if it's an action that needs to be taken, then we can take it.
Right.
But if it's no action, then we just don't take an action. But at least if it's publicized on the agenda, then we can move forward with whatever action is necessary.
Thank you. And in, in your defense of writing the agenda, we hadn't met yet, so we couldn't say that, to you.
Unless we have a special
Unless
meeting,
you have a special meeting.
we can do it at any time. We
At
can
least
call a
7 days
special
out.
meeting, as long as we advertise the special meeting,
Yeah.
like we did for the beach.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we need a special meeting. I mean, it takes sometimes over a year to get a marker approved. So, I say we approve it that's just me. I think we should approve
The
it.
next meeting, November's
Make this an
meeting?
action item for
Yeah.
the next meeting?
Okay, that's fine.
And I also reported mistakenly at our last meeting that another thing we were considering was possible changes that needed to happen to the marker. Okay.
So basically, we will wait
Sorry.
until the next meeting to vote,
Yeah,
to
November.
move it forward. If
Right. And then in
Did you have a
future
question?
agendas, we'll err on the side of potential action for
Yeah,
just about
sure.
everything.
But we don't want to just blow off the procedures. I think we can certainly wait a month, so thanks for your help on that. But-
I was just saying that, so we would look to make this an action item for the next meeting? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh, I did have a question, Reverend McCaffrey and Rachel, were
Can apply for more than one marker.
That's good news.
Yeah.
It's about you can't have more than one marker for a person. So we can't do this and then another one for
Right.
Peter Lewes somewhere else.
Right.
But he also said, that we might also want to consider the wayside signs, which we
Right.
talked about before too, as other options, which don't take, quite as long, but that's another committee, another path.
Another approach.
Yeah, so,
So if this organization come up with another marker, it's good that they will accept it, although we've put in for one and received that marker, you still can get another as long as it's
A different
person.
subject or title or
Yes.
location.
yeah.
And remember, the markers are paid by the organizations that request them, unless anybody can request a marker. You can, as a citizen, request a marker, but you'd have to pay for it. And in our case,
Let's just satisfied with that. We'll move forward into the, I think it's F on the agenda.
We're still, Reverend, I'm sorry. That was the update on marker, so now we have an update on volunteer research, so you're right.
So you want to go?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
do, I'm not sure if, I didn't receive anything from the education committee. Reverend McCafferty, did you receive any updates from the education committee?
I did not.
The education committee meeting was canceled
Okay,
last time, so that's probably why
Okay.
you didn't. Oh, postponed, I guess.
postponed, okay. Many, but the one I'm concentrating on right now personally was the Happy Day Club. I wanted to find out how the Happy Day Club got into my grandparents' hands and looking at the deed or what have you. So I did have an opportunity to do a little research with Miss Clemens at the Lewes, at the Margaret Rollins Building, Lewes Historical Society. And so that has been enlightening, I must say. I'm not going to reveal a whole lot right now. But, I mean, to continue to work on that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and know too that they call that recent history. So there's a difference in what we do for this society or for anyone, and recent history and history. So we're hopeful that someone would volunteer to work in the 1800s and the 1700s. So we can, like you're saying, even go further back.
You're able to really find even where the name came from?
Well, I'm still working on some of that, so not there yet.
I just don't want people to think that recent history, that they look at it as you know what I'm saying, as strongly as they do ancient, I'll call it, ancient history. They do, and they consider it, but they call it recent history. Okay.
Oh, I will say, Tyler, at the ceremony the other day, on Wednesday, he said what Lewes is doing right now is so exciting. It's so exciting, and I hope it really inspires other towns down here to do the same thing.
native of Lewes who contributed a lot to African American Black culture, and it was a good meeting. It was just a good feeling,
Yeah.
and so I think that should be recognized and provide some momentum moving forward.
Absolutely.
I certainly just want to chime in, Carl. I want to say that I'm so hopeful that it will. And it opens up what really has transpired in Lewes and the history of all, and in this particular case, the history of person of color, that it happened. It was positive, and it opens that up. And so I concur. I'm hoping that it would allow us to move forward with doing these types of things. It's something that was earned. It was earned. His integrity, the sweat of his brow. It was earned, and I think for so long and so much, we have not done that as a country. We live in the greatest country in the world. We need to begin to do those type things. So thank you.
I think it's exciting because not only are the people that's residing here now excited about it, but I've talked to a couple of people that doesn't live here anymore, but when they got the news that the beach name change, they were just excited about it. So, it's not just in Delaware. In fact, out-of-state people that know something about it, they are excited to hear that the name change, that hasn't been a name change, that and it's African American, they.
Just awarded a beach after, was it 100 years, Sister Katrina?
Yes. California.
California.
Because the land was stolen or taken.
Confiscated or something, so they were awarded that beach back. So we're hopeful
Yes.
that things change
I just wanted to
for
say,
positive,
I think one of the things that really made this all happen and
It takes a lot of preparation for that event on that weekend. So my recommendation would be to have it on a different Saturday than theirs, and that way the vendors can recover and be available to celebrate with us on, I think Friday is when you're talking about June, and you're talking about traffic, and coming down this way, it may be a little logistically cumbersome. So a Saturday is what we think might be a little bit better to consider.
And I'm fine with that. I didn't know, I know theirs is pretty large, and I didn't know what would be the scope of ours. Would ours
Well,
be that large?
theirs didn't start off large.
Right,
So ours would have to build year
Right.
after year.
right.
So ours may not be as large. We hope it will, but, you never know until you start getting vendors and the food trucks and the different organizations to participate. And that's one reason why the mayor's asked us to start now, because it's going to take this next 6 months almost to get it together.
Also, I would think too, not that it would make a difference whether it's before the 18th or after the 18th, but I think we also want to get on the calendar. I don't know when the city prints that calendar out. but-
That's why the mayor is asking us to
Yeah. No, but I mean-
consider.
I mean, don't they print a calendar?
So,
and-
yeah, the chamber prints the
chamber.
annual calendar, but yes, and I suspect that we should lock something in, because by November, I'm sure they're getting close to finalizing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they are, so.
So,
So may I suggest that we lock down a date for 2022, but we have a moment to decide if we want it to be a constant date every year?
absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good suggestion. Because, the
Fourth Saturday in June. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. So then ours will be the fourth Saturday in June, right?
would it be?
that would be the fourth Saturday is the 20.
That's right.
I think that is the
25th.
Yeah, 25th, yeah. And when is July 4th in relation to that?
The next
That's
weekend?
that's the next weekend.
Okay.
The other thing that he wanted us to consider as well is because of the logistics and because of the length of food trucks, is the place where the location is, and the mayor had recommended that it be at George H.P. Smith Park, because of the food trucks are at least, one food truck can be 20, how big is a car? It could be at least, it's
28 feet.
and if we had 5, even 10 food trucks, and plus with the stores and trying to block that off, that could be a logistic nightmare on 2nd Street. So he asked us to consider having it at George H.P. Smith Park. And one of the things that I thought of was that I know that the farmers market is usually there, but I think that would be a draw for people at the farmers market to just walk over to the Juneteenth and increase participation in education of Juneteenth. So that's just me, but
The
somebody else
farmer's
can have.
market usually ends at
At
noon.
noon, right.
So maybe they could just stay. You know, put their
I'm thinking
produce in the car.
only because I don't want it diluted, that I think Juneteenth ought to be its own event, not mixed up with another event.
Yes, they end at noon, so Juneteenth can begin at from what, noon till until, or after that? 1 until?
Well, do you know the ones that are there will have to get out? So I would think that would be cutting it.
There might be an issue with parking too if you do it too quick.
And parking,
right
the
after.
people, the vendors packing up and,
So the timing can be decided at, another, and more discussion can happen.
That. I'm just asking, when we talk about the time, let's consider that.
Absolutely.
I take down tents at the farmer's market, and
Yeah.
people get out of there pretty fast.
And again, I don't want it diluted.
Is
I
the
think
farmer's
it
market every
deserves its
Saturday?
own celebration.
The farmer's market is every Saturday?
Yes, well, so it'll soon be over, but it'll be every Saturday.
The other consideration is that the farmer's market, at times, they move to Shields. So, there could be a request for them for that weekend to move over to Shields if, and that would kind of prevent the diluting of the event. So that's just for future
Just
consideration.
making suggestions now, but we have time.
But we have the date.
Discuss
That was
it.
the important thing, to get the date on the calendar.
Okay.
So that's it.
That's the fourth Saturday, June 25th. Okay. This I set the date, location, and the teams for the.
So the team that will be getting together will talk more about the details, and will be presenting that in the future commission meetings, if that's okay. Wouldn't you agree, Reverend McCafferty?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
So do we actually have a vote on it then?
Oh, yes, we can vote.
You made a motion.
Oh, I did make a motion, and it was seconded. It was seconded, I believe. So motion carried, everybody said aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think everybody did.
Are we adding to the motion the location as well, or just?
Not,
No.
not at this time, but that's for consideration.
Okay.
So, Madam Clerk, we move on to item H, which is discussion on intellectual property and others.
In whether a volunteer had to turn over information that they researched on behalf of the commission. So I needed to go to a city solicitor and ask about what would be considered intellectual property and what should be turned over to the commission as part of volunteers doing research for and on behalf of the commission. And so I went to Glenn, and he said if a volunteer was performing work on behalf of the commission and held out to be doing so. Any documents in the volunteer's possession should be turned over upon request. However, personal notes of mental impressions generally would not need to be disclosed. So basically, the expectation is for when a volunteer does work on behalf of the commission, that they should, and if they make copies of stuff, and it should be reported and turned over to the commission. Now, their personal notes, not so much, because that may not be considered public information.
Does
That's
that also
personal.
include like videos, like if they record someone?
Oh, yes, that's definitely part of the commission work, because we always have that signed. We have the form to sign that over to the commission. But that came up as an issue, so we will make sure that during our next volunteers meeting that it's the information is communicated, that anything of copies or things of that nature should be turned over to the commissions, because it could be considered part of the work that needs to be evaluated by the commission for its relevance. And Reverend McCafferty, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay.
So let me ask you, with that and having had this experience now, is there any thought that volunteers maybe should sign something that they in fact will do that?
So, well, what I did ask, I found out that not a commissioner or a volunteer actually signs anything for the city. So, when I asked Glenn about it, I asked him, let me see, can the commission assume that at least state that there's an expectation that volunteers are in fact volunteering on behalf of the commission, and should the bylaws or scope of responsibility or statement that we drew up require adjustment to be more specific, and is that allowable? He said, I doubt this would be a problem in most volunteers. However, if you think it's important to do so, it is permissible to require within your bylaws that documents obtained while on commission business become the possession of the commission. And I also asked about thoughts of required to sign anything to serve as a commissioner or volunteer. And he said he did not think a statement of understanding is necessary at this stage, but if the problem grows, then it may become advisable.
Anything that,
And that's because legally, if a person is working on behalf of a company to procure information, that information belongs to the person. And it's not even just, that belongs to the person that they are working for.
The company that they're working for?
Yeah.
But I think the distinction that was mentioned to me at one time is that that there may be a distinction between an employee of a company versus a volunteer.
I did not see that when I looked up the law. But, I mean, I think it will be a moot point, because I think if we explain to the volunteers right up front that the information belongs to the commission, most people, even now,
within our scope of responsibility that we gave all of our volunteers.
So, Trina, this individual refused to do that?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a
But I think
problem.
we ought to reiterate that,
Yeah,
and highlight it each time we get a new volunteer.
yeah. That we,
Maybe we could Google, forms that other organizations use, just like Google form for volunteers concerning intellectual property, and just see if any come up, any examples of, something you might want volunteers to sign if you think that's going to be a problem.
well, and that's why we got the city solicitor involved and got his advice on it. So I don't know if it's something that we want to move to right now, but after we have another conversation with volunteers and continue to move forward, that the expectation is there shouldn't be any issue with copies that you made that is public information already to turn that over to the commission. It's just the personal notes that you may make that may be an issue and considered non.
Filing system.
So you'll have like our commission section and?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're actually transitioning to an electronic filing system, so it'll make it a lot easier to find,
Yeah, yes.
theoretically.
So if you are a volunteer for this organization, then you're automatically working under the organization, right?
On behalf
If you're
of,
a volunteer.
Yes.
If you're just an individual doing something,
yes,
we don't have any power over that person, what they do outside of this organization. But if they're working and bringing information into the organization, if we're going to use it and they're a volunteer for this organization, then they automatically, what they give you is information belongs to the organization. But if someone just come in with some information that they have, it could be a suggestion and not something that we would use from a volunteer. But I think any volunteer that go out gathering information for this organization, it should be property of the organization, right?
Yes,
I think so.
you're correct.
But if they're just out there doing something, and you couldn't call a person that just out volunteering for something else, you doesn't call that an individual going out from this organization doing something. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
so that's it. We don't have any action on that. We just wanted to have that discussion and bring it towards, because we've been working on it for a while, and this is the first time we had an opportunity to bring it before the commission, because we were playing phone tag back and forth with the city solicitor, so we know he's busy. So we finally got some good information to be able to communicate to the volunteers.
So man's clear on this intellectual property. Okay. Similar to public.
I'm sorry, Reverend, I'm sorry to interrupt
That's all right.
you, but I have to leave. I have another meeting that was scheduled before we changed this time.
Yes.
So please excuse me from the remainder of this
Thank you
meeting.
for your information. which is very helpful to us personally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rev.
Good night. Good night. Okay, good night.
Now we go to the public comments, questions. about the next
The
on
other,
agenda.
just other, the one thing that for the other, I just thought it might be a good idea, because this is one of the, for all of us, because it'd be nice to put it up on,
Yeah, I think that's a good
know who
idea.
the commissioners are. So that was that for the other.
Okay,
Now we're at public comments.
public comments.
Were there anything?
No hand raised, no comments.
No comments? Well, schedule our next meeting.
November
like that.
18th.
Yeah, looks like our next meeting is November 18th. What's that, a week before Thanksgiving?
It is.
So so one of the action items for next meeting is to vote on the Peter Lewes
Submission.
submission. So we know that's going to be on the next meeting agenda. And that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion,
So moved.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
6 o'clock or 6:30 next
6
time?
o'clock.
6 o'clock.
I'll be back at 6 o'clock next
Yes.
time.
That's perfectly fine. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
Not her fault,
That's
it's my
okay.
fault. Just so you know.
That's it. We're out.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Feels almost like June, doesn't it?
I